What happens when a hoarding/crime scene cleaner makes a short video about their job and posts it on TikTok? The answer is 40,000 followers overnight and 4 million in 6 months. This is the story of Jacob Suarez, who you might recognize on TikTok as Biggie Clean. With his captivating stories and satisfying cleaning videos, millions of viewers come back to watch the extreme conditions of the houses he cleans and the refreshing compassion he has for the people he helps. And while most social media stars are satisfied with the luxuries of their success, Jacob sees this as just the beginning of something more important. Today, we'll talk with him about how this all started, his most traumatic job experience, and how he's helping people in the community in very real ways. While you're watching, if you enjoy the episode, please consider liking and subscribing so we can share this amazing story with more people. What's up, man? How are you doing?
What's up, Jonathan? I'm doing good.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
I feel like I've known you for a while now, but we've only met up like 2 or 3 times.
I know, yeah, but I know you've been very involved with my career, social media wise, so.
When I met you, it was a big deal at the time because you said you'd only been on TikTok for like a couple months.
Oh, yeah.
And you had like 1.4, 1.5 followers when I met you.
Yeah.
How many do you have now?
Oh, almost 4 million. Yeah, it's crazy.
In just a few months? How long has it been total since you first got on?
About 6 months, less than 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just saw your most viewed video has 70 million, no, I'm sorry. Just about 80 million views now,
Yeah,
right?
we're literally so close to 80 million views on that one video. It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us, how did this start? This is so crazy. How did this whole journey begin for you?
Yeah, so I'm a crime scene cleaner, right? I clean up crime scenes, biohazards, hoarding homes. I've been doing that for about 3 years now. And about 6 months ago, I was talking with my buddies about it, and they're asking me all these questions, and I'm used to these questions, right? And I got a little bit tired of, answering the same questions every single day for my friends. And so I kind of had this idea like, oh, what if I just started talking about it on the internet, like on social media, just showcasing what I do for work every day and then answering all the questions they have on there. That way I can just direct my friends to my social media page and then they can watch all that. And so yeah, that's probably a good idea. I wonder if it would get any followers. And I posted a video. I posted 3 videos, actually. And then overnight, I had 40,000 followers, over 1 million views, just like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did that feel? What was your instant reaction when you woke up and saw those?
I was freaking out. I remember waking up and being like, oh my gosh. I called my boss first thing in the morning. And I was like, Phil, check this out. It was super exciting, yeah.
I've always wondered, so when you blow up like that, does your phone not know how to handle that many notifications, or does it have some kind of...
I think the notifications were just off from the beginning, because I had just downloaded TikTok, like literally that week, posted my videos, and it blew up. And when it asked me to turn the notifications on, I was just like, no, TikTok is stupid. I'm not going to use this anyway. This is just for an experiment. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So did you just see like that red little icon to say like 40,000 or whatever?
Yeah.
That's a huge dopamine rush, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. When you open up the app and it's like plus 30K, I was like, oh, what?
Yeah.
What is that?
This is a little bit deeper question earlier on than I thought, but do you feel any difference when that number isn't what you expect?
Yes, so early on, and this is just kind of like one of the weird things about having success, like right off the bat, or super early on, is that I got used to seeing 20K, 30K followers every single day, every night, millions of views at least a day. So whenever, halfway, a couple months in, I started posting videos and they weren't getting 1 million views in the first day. I wasn't getting 20,000 followers first thing in the morning. I was like, oh man, my brand's dying, and it's like, no, you still got like 5,000 followers that day. That's still growth. That's still really, really good. But I was kind of attuned to like a super exponential rate of growth right from the beginning. So it did feel kind of sucky when it wasn't that rate anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
But obviously you have those high highs still, because look at where you've gotten. You've almost doubled you've more than doubled since I met you.
Yeah.
And the trajectory seems to be going steadily up this whole time.
Yeah.
Which is a lot. Some people have huge videos or viral videos, once or twice, and then, it never really matches that same level.
Right.
How are you getting the same consistent, viewership and engagement throughout pretty much every video that you've done?
I wish I knew the answer to that, but I think consistency is one of those things. A lot of people, they'll post a really viral video, and then they either just completely fall off the map because they don't really do that same type of content, or they don't really stay aligned with that brand, or their brand is just so wild and so, off-centered. What I do is I've really structured all of my content from beginning to end. And there's multiple ways I do that, but one of them is how I title them, how I use the cover photo, and then just the general theme of like my life as a crime scene cleaner, and all that just being related to that one topic. So whenever someone does come across a video that's maybe satisfying or just going viral for no reason, they can go click on my profile and they can see that they can expect to see that similar type of content from beginning to end. And I think that's kind of what's driving a lot of the growth of this platform. So
that makes sense. Yeah. So do you have some sort of understanding of the elements that people are most attracted to that seem to do better than others?
I think so. I mean, just being a consumer of content for a long time. I mean, I was watching TikTok videos, for months and just kind of scrolling, and then I was aware enough to be like, oh, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. And then when I started making content, I was just basically going off that the entire time. It's like, oh, I'm going to make videos that are like, 15 to 30 seconds long, and I'm going to be really snappy and fast-paced and get to the point quickly. Yeah. Stuff like that is stuff I started incorporating in my videos that I appreciate, and I think a lot of other people are appreciating as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There's always, especially with what you do, there's the entertainment aspect, but then there's a deeper aspect to what you do too. Right. There was a BuzzFeed article talking about you the other day.
Yeah.
That's got to feel kind of cool to hear about, right? They're a huge publication.
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of thought that at first too. It was like, oh, BuzzFeed's reaching out to me. And that was my first reaction. I thought it was really rad. But over time, I was just getting so many messages from BuzzFeed, different creators on BuzzFeed, and just kind of like glancing at their content. It's like they're a content farm. They're posting every single hour, around the hour, 24/7. And a lot of it is kind of low effort, not that great content. And it's like, oh, I'm feeding into the BuzzFeed content stream. Whoop-de-doo. But it's still cool. It's still cool.
Yeah, it's getting to that point where it's just kind of expected or kind of every day now to see something like that pop up. But no, I think it was just really cool how they were talking about how people are impacted by the content that you do, and it's beyond. Yeah, because there's the cleaning aspect. I think one of the biggest videos you did was just like, I think there was a huge wipe that you did at the very beginning. Yeah. Just a super satisfying like cleanup job that you did. Yeah. But then there's also, I feel like in almost every video, that you talk about like the mental health aspect. You talk about the way that you want to protect the families of some of these, trauma scenes from re-traumatizing themselves. Talk about some of that. Yeah,
so it's like, a lot of my content is satisfying cleanup videos, and there's definitely a portion of my audience that is there just for that, right? But obviously, being a crime scene cleaner, someone who's been in these trauma situations with the people impacted by it, I've come to learn a lot just about their lives and like what it's like going through such an extreme trauma at such an early, point, And so the reason why I do what I do is to protect these families from further traumatizing themselves after such a horrific event, right? So that's why I do the cleanup, and other private companies like me, they do the cleanup as well, to protect these families from such an awful thing. And so like being able to step into that place early on and protect them from that and help with their mental health as they go through such an awful experience, like that's why I do what I do. And that never gets old. I've had multiple clients that just like, after we're done, they're just crying because they're so thankful that they didn't have to go in there and see that and see their loved one that way. And same thing applies for the hoarding aspect as well. It's like we do really deep cleaning and hoard junk outs, and something they would never be able to do on their own due to mental illness or disability. And so being able to step into their lives for that and help make their home a fresh start again, it never gets old. So.
Can you think of one particular story of maybe a family or a person that you helped that was like particularly grateful for how you guys helped them out?
Yeah. I remember, so it's gonna get deep really quickly, but we did a suicide cleanup about a year ago, and the kid was about 17 at the time, and I was only like 19 at the time, right? And so that just hit different because the age, similarities there. And I remember seeing the mom and dad because they had nowhere else to go. They couldn't have a hotel or anything. So they had to live there. And so when they greeted us, they were obviously distraught. They were barely there mentally. And they showed us where the remote was. They were pretty much not talking. They pointed out the room, and we just got to work right away. And when we finished, they were sobbing, and they started showing videos of their kid, to us. They're like, "Can we please show you what he was like?" And so and we're like, of course, we're not going to deny that. But that was just especially difficult, because they were so grateful, but they also wanted to show us like the life, that he lived. And so that one always sticks with me.
Were you like? Did you know going in, when like your first day on the job, that it was going to get this serious?
First day on the job, I didn't do any of the suicide cleanups or crime scene cleaning. That's something I had to grow into because I was like 17 when I started, and so I just did most of the gross filth hoarding cleanup. And once I turned like 19, my boss offered me to take me on my first death cleanup, and he prepared me well. He was like, it's going to be mentally tough, and you're going to have to learn how to detach a little bit and put blinders on and not take it all in all at the same time, right? But even then, like, I was overwhelmed at first, realizing what it is that I'm cleaning, so it's really hard at first, but you get used to it.
Is there some level of detachment that you have to have, or are you like fully aware of what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, no one can do this type of cleanup long term, unless they detach at some degree, like a healthy degree of detachment. Like you cannot. There's all sorts of symbols when you're on a scene of like what could have happened, and you might have some context of how the person may have killed themselves or how they died, and you try not to do this, but passively you're kind of piecing together the scene as you're cleaning. But a good level of detachment is just like putting that away and just looking at it as a job. Like, oh, this needs to be tossed out. This needs to be cleaned. And then in the back of in front of your mind, you're just thinking, I'm doing this for the family, so they don't have to see this. So.
Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult some of these jobs must be to see for you, and then for the families they still have to deal with that afterwards. Have you had any contact with some, or just kind of seen updates on how they're doing afterwards?
Yeah, typically after jobs like that, we don't stay in contact with the families, just because it's like, looking from the family's perspective, they wouldn't really want to have updates from the company that cleaned up after such a traumatic scene in their life. Something they kind of want to put away a little bit. So it's like we're focused on stepping into that instant moment of trauma and helping alleviate that, and then just stepping away and letting them begin the healing process, right? Because that's kind of what we're all about. We're helping families begin the healing process, and you can't do that if there's physical reminders of what happened during that trauma scene.
So at the same time, you might be in there, you get in, you get out, you do the job, you help them as much as you can, and then you have to go home. Yeah. And I'm sure like the images, the feelings, the whatever you just went through sticks with you too.
Yeah, that is definitely a thing, especially when you're doing a job that hits very close to home, like I did a suicide cleanup about a month ago, and the person was about my sister's age, and it's like, man, it's just like, you never know what people are going through, and it does change your perspective on a lot of things, just when you're talking with people and when you're seeing people out about doing their thing. It's like they could be going through the absolute hell right now, you have no idea. And then just trying to sleep at night, considering like the crazy job you just did. But what's great, so we're a family company, as you know. What's great about being a family company is that we can talk about these things, and we can support each other and do these mental health checks and talk about just how heavy it is, out in the world and doing the work that we do. And so that's probably been one of the best parts of working with this company.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me more about what's the impact you're hoping to have. Obviously there's a lot of attention behind this content now. Your platform's getting bigger and bigger. Right. What do you want to do with that? What kind of good do you think can come from that?
Yeah, great question. So obviously when I first started the channel, I didn't have any like lofty goal or huge mission, to accomplish in life. I just kind of wanted to share what my life was like with the world. And I think I'm accomplishing that right now. But as I'm looking at the response my audience is having to this content and how people are being affected, like I've had so many DMs, in my inbox saying, hey, I want to be just like you when I'm older. I'm going to do this and this because of you. Or I also get messages saying, hey, I'm a hoarder, or I struggle with this type of issue in my life. And watching your videos, I feel empowered and encouraged to like take ownership of that and like make a change in my life. It's like, wow, that's amazing. That was like not the intent at the beginning, but that's cool, that's happening. And so right now it's like, I'm trying to lean into that. And it's like, how can I empower more people to like, clean up their own homes or help other people who are struggling with hoarding mental illness to get them the help that they need, and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where I see this platform going, is like just being a voice for people who often feel embarrassed or ashamed of their living condition, of hoarding and mental illness with that sort of stuff, and letting them know that it's okay to actually get help, and that there's people available to help them.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Yeah,
talk about a larger scale then. I mean, you've definitely had people come to you with the ways that you've been helping them so far, that's awesome.
Right.
Because you to see that real, because that's what impact is. Everyone says they want to change the world and impact people, but like you're doing it.
Yeah.
Through what you're doing.
To impact well, you need to start really small, really niche. And it's like my niche right now, as I see it, is people who struggle with hoarding disorder, and just overall, just like mental well-being. And so being able to showcase people who struggle with that, and then people like me who can go in and help remediate those situations for them, helps give them encouragement to accomplish that. And kind of like beyond that, like the larger scale thing is just learning how to love people really, really well. And so that's like the meta idea. And then the way I do that is through helping people who struggle with hoarding mental illness and getting them the help they need. But yeah, that's what it's always been about, is just how do you love people exceptionally well and just show them a better way of living, right? Because a lot of people, they think loving people is just like respecting what they do. And it's like, oh, you do what you do, that's your truth type of thing. Whereas I'm kind of more on the side of like, everyone deserves kindness, everyone deserves respect. But to love people well, you need to take a firm stance and show them a better way of living. It's like, I'm not going to tell my clients like, oh, it's okay to live in rodent feces in absolute squalor. That's your truth. It's like, no, I mean, I love you and I want you to, be happy. And I'm going to respect your living and what your history is. But I'm going to take a firm stance and say that, no, we can clean this up. We can have a better home to live in, and it can get better. And I'm going to help you do that type of thing. So
it's a good balance, because some of the work we've done together so far, one of the most important ways that you see the work that you do and the people that you work with is through non-judgment, right? So when you say love, it's non-judgment and acceptance is one side of it, which is such an important side, because people see negativity all day long. They're being judged all the time.
Right.
They feel insecure because of that, and they don't feel like they can either be themselves or reach out for help when they need it.
Right.
So starting with that non-judgment and that acceptance is huge.
Yeah.
But part of that love aspect is, non-judgment and acceptance, but I want to help you live a better life at the same time, not stay where you're at.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most common comments I get in my videos is people, because the way I carry myself in my videos is very non-judgmental, right? A lot of people are noticing that. And it's like, you do that because you need to understand what they're going through. And it is mental illness. People don't purposely live in squalor because they want to. It's mental illness, and you have to understand that. And so that's why I carry such a non-judgmental attitude, because I really care about them and I want them to see that there is a better side to this. And I'm just going to show you how.
Yeah, that's really cool. Talk about some of the things you've done in the community. You've gone off of the platform, done things locally, or done different types of content where you're doing like random acts of kindness and things like that. And tell me about some of the things you've done kind of outside of what people are used to seeing.
Right, yeah. So it is a personal channel, even though most of my content is related to my life, working crime scenes and hoarding, cleanups. But I do have a life outside of work, and I do like showcasing that. And it is kind of for personal reasons as well. It's like I kind of want to have a personal video diary of what my life was like in my early 20s. I think that's kind of cool. And so I've been recording videos where I do random acts of kindness and engage the community and interact with my audience on that scale, which has just been super, super fun. Because it's like 4 million people, but I kind of want to know you guys individually. What do you guys care about? What do you guys believe in? And random acts of kindness has been a great way to showcase that. And then, just my personal life. Like I went bungee jumping, a few weekends ago, and I just recorded that experience, and I do hiking and that sort of thing. And it's just kind of fun to, just have this diary that I can create in my early 20s and like look back on. And my audience also finds it interesting as well, so that's cool.
Well, because that's the inspiring part too, seeing somebody make the most out of their life. Like that you're dealing with such serious stuff, but you're also trying to be as happy and productive and impactful as you can.
Yeah.
That's a good kind of contrast.
Exactly. It's kind of showing how normal it is. It's like you don't have to be 80 hours a week focusing on one huge issue you want to solve in the world. It's like, yes, I have my convictions, I have my beliefs in how these problems should be solved, but I don't have to give every single waking moment of my life to that. I can still enjoy normal human things and have fun with my friends and be a 20-year-old and and experience that.
You would never know, like meeting you for the first time, that you do anything near the kind of work that you do. And I don't know how much of that might be natural, like you're kind of an upbeat guy, you're positive, you have a good spirit to you, or how much of that you have to work really hard for. Have you learned skills to help you come out of some of these things and be the way you
definitely.
are?
I think a lot of it was learned through the company. I mean, obviously, when you step into a hoarder home that has stuff up to the ceiling for the very first time, your instant thought isn't like, oh, I want to help this person and help them live a better life. That's definitely a learned thing, and that's not my first reaction when I first started the job. But kind of learning the company values and the values that my family has and how we really care about getting these people with the help that they need. And learning that hoarding disorder is a mental illness. Over time, it kind of just becomes ingrained in you, and it's like, oh, this is just how the world is, and this is how we're going to make the world better through these different systems. And so, a lot of it is learned, and then naturally, like, I don't know, I just think life is better being not as judgmental and super critical and just happier. It's like that. I think that is partly a choice. You can kind of choose to see things in the best light versus just being negative all the time. And that's kind of more of a personal thing for me. So.
TikTok isn't negative at all, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. No. It's full of love all the time.
That's tough, because I think when you see really positive, like best in humanity type of videos, you see people responding in really good ways. But one of the biggest things I have concerns with is if someone says something that they disagree with, the first comment is just attacking that person. Have you seen that
all the
pattern?
Time.
And it's kind of sad sometimes, because there's important things to talk about. There's important things going on in people's lives. I just feel like sometimes there's not a great energy on there, and it's just kind of really sad to see. How do you respond to that, and what do you think we do about that?
I think I totally agree. It does feel very much like the second comment is always just a comeback. It's the other side. There's a comment that's kind of showcases one side, and then the comment's like, oh, well, you didn't think about this. Ha, gotcha. Gotcha in 4K, right? And so it's like, what to do about that? I think that's just kind of how the platform is structured, and just being a super divisive cultural moment that we're in already. It's hard to divide that, but I think having content creators that are aware of both sides and being critical in their thinking, they can open up conversations that are not super, left or right-sided, and it's kind of more like, oh, well, here's how both sides see things, and here's some of the core root issues, and like how can we work together to like solve that type of thing. So,
how do you think we bring people together at the end of the day?
It's being aware of what's actually going on. I mean, there's all sorts of echo chambering, for both sides for all sorts of different issues. But I think it's just like being the forefront of that conversation, and just letting your audience know that it's an okay thing to talk about and to talk about well, and just like not pick fights. It's like, we're here to solve problems, not to like catch people, with their slip-ups. So
I think that's one of the great things. There's an opportunity that you also have with TikTok and making content like this, because when you bring people together under shared experience and they're feeling the same things at the same time, it could be empathy, it could be sadness, it could be happiness, it could be laughter, and you bring people together in that emotion, usually we tend to kind of bond over that and kind of see ourselves as the same people. And I think that's what's so great about what you're doing, is because you're creating things that aren't tackling one issue or another. Like, you're not trying to make a statement. You're trying to say something, but say something that affects pretty much everybody on a personal level. And when you can hit that deep, I think people can kind of ignore some of the shallow divisiveness and kind of relate to something deeper. Right?
I mean, if they see like a non-judgmental, happier person on the platform just doing work that everyone can pretty much get on board with, cleaning up gross filth, cleaning up crime scenes, it's like everyone can kind of get on board with that. And it's like, what's the root thing that's driving that? It's like, oh, it's love, and how do you love effectively? So that's like a super broad, idea to drill down, but that's kind of what's been motivating me to create content. It's like, how do you love people well, and how do you do that effectively? You know what I mean?
That's great. That's one of the biggest differences between motivation and inspiration that I talk about, because motivation is what you say to people. Like, you can say motivating things, you can do it, right? But it's another thing to live by example, which is what I think you're doing. You're inspiring because you're living a life that I think a lot of people want to live, both through the impact side and through just having a good time, being a young guy. You know what I mean? So like, you're living the life, and I think that's the inspirational part. You're not telling people what to do. You're just kind of showing them what can be done.
And people are taking notice of that. Like, I can only ever be my true, authentic self, and I do my best to showcase that on the internet, but I do my very best to just be authentically myself. and showcase that to everybody. And so I think that the more people that do that, I think the better off, people are gonna feel, consuming content on the platform. And yeah, that's just kind of where my heart is.
Absolutely. So yeah, when you're going into these jobs and you're about to see some type of traumatic situation, do you know what the story is going in? Do you know kind of what's going on as you get there?
There is a certain level of knowledge we need to know going into a scene just so that we can prepare, right, for what we're about to do. But typically we try to know as little as possible. One, for the client's sake, we don't want them to have to relive that in their imagination and tell us everything that happened, just for their sake. And then for our sake as well, we don't want to know more than we need to about the situation, just because it can be so mentally damaging to just do that every single day, and putting yourself in such a traumatic situation, it can wear on your mental health very quickly. So we need to know enough to get it done, but once we get onto scene, we just treat it as a job. This needs to get done. We're doing this for the family, and then you just try your best not to look around and find clues as to like what could have caused this, which can be really hard when they're just right there and you see a handwritten note and things on the wall. It's just
That's tough. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's curiosity and I'm sure there's empathy and compassion, but you also have to be able to do the most helpful thing you can do in your role.
Right.
And that's probably tough to do. The more emotionally invested you get, then that has an effect on you, and then maybe you're not as helpful to them, or you can't do the job next week.
Exactly. Yeah. Like as a type 9 individual in the Enneagram, like I'm very emotionally, empathetic, and I want to understand as much as I can as to like what kind of happened here. But that can be very damaging and will not let me do this for the long run. And that's what's important, is being able to stay for the long run and have the most net positive attitude towards the world.
Yeah.
So,
what is the long run for you?
yeah, I mean, something I ask myself every day. I try to think of things, in short 1 to 2 years and kind of what's going on now. And it's like, I want to grow this platform with YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and share just being my authentic self, and sharing my authentic self with the world. And so right now that looks like growing into YouTube and doing vlogs and sharing what my life is like, with more context on the job and then off the job. It looks like inspiring more and more people to take up this role. I know a lot of people ask me, how do you become a crime scene cleaner? And maybe we can talk about that too, on how I got into it. But a lot of people want to do this job, and I'm bringing more awareness into the industry and letting people know that it's okay to get help for this. And that's that I really, really believe in, and what I want the bulk of my audience to know, that it's okay to get help for these really embarrassing, shameful, things going on in life. Like, that's real. And you don't need to be afraid of that or be ashamed of that.
Yeah.
Because there's people out there that's going to love you no matter what, and that want to help you get help. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. I'll come back to that in a second, but yeah, you said people wanted to know like how you got into it or how they can get into it. Is that what it was?
Yeah, a lot of people want to know, how do you become a crime scene cleaner? And so for me, we are a family business, so I didn't really have any certifications to start. Obviously, I wasn't doing crime scene cleaning right off the bat. I was doing more of the hoarding, muck outs. But something that will help you get into the industry is taking certs for haphazard certifications. There's OSHA safety courses. There's bloodborne pathogen courses. All those things will look really, really good on the resume, and will show any potential, people hiring that you're well qualified for the job. And obviously, any experience you have in cleaning or construction, that sort of thing, is very helpful as well.
Why did you take this job in the first place? Like, were you looking at different options and this was one of them? Did someone encourage you? Like, how did you get into this?
Yeah, when I first started, it was pretty much just a summer job type of thing. I was still in high school, and I kind of wanted some money. And we also did it on the weekends as well when I was in school early on. And it was just fun because it was a whole family thing. So I got to hang out with my cousins and my brother and my mom. She did a lot of the jobs with us too. And it was kind of like a little bit of a family bonding experience, more or less, because we're all in hazmat suits and we're all going through crap. And so it was just kind of fun to like work with them. And it was cool to be on these scenes because it's something that's really unique. Not a lot of people get to see that firsthand. And it was just kind of fun. And then obviously I went off to college and wasn't doing it then. And then COVID hit, and I went back home, and I needed a job, and I was already liked this job a lot, and it was fun, and so I went back into it, started doing more of the marketing and sales role of the company, and grew into that, and was pretty successful, and then I started filming the jobs, and that's how I got here.
Nice,
So, yeah.
nice. From a psychological perspective, I think that there's been a lot of research and study and just observation around the type of professions people get into, or the type of just personalities people develop. Sometimes they're based around trying to correct trauma that they might have experienced themselves in the past. Mm-hmm. We kind of subconsciously put ourselves in the same situations and hoping for different results. Yeah. Or hoping we can handle it in a better way to sort of heal from what happened. Okay. We don't know we're doing it for that reason.
Right.
That tends to be something we do. We were neglected as a kid, so we try to find a whole lot of community. Do you think that there's anything that might kind of explain why you're so willing to put yourself in these really difficult situations and be so compassionate at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately enough for me, I had an amazing childhood and amazing parents, that have stayed with me my entire life. And so that's been such a blessing for me. And part of that is like, I want to be able to share that with other people as well. It's like, I got so lucky and had such an amazing family with so much love. And so many of my friends didn't have that. And it's like, how can I be a role, an influence in their life to let them experience just like a slither of that? Yeah. That would be amazing. There was some experience in our family with hoarding. And so that's also kind of why we started the company, is because we've known how that affects the family structure and those people as individuals. And we want to share a family loving hand to other people in that situation as well. Yeah. And so that's been a big influence for that. But yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. You basically see the result of what really bad mental health can turn into, right? Yeah. What have you learned or experienced that can help pull people out of those situations? Because if you want to be able to prevent people from getting to that place in the first place, that's a big part of your mission, right?
Yeah.
How do you help people do that, or how do they do that?
Yeah, if I'm out of a job, that's great news for the world. I hope one day there's never a need for crime scene cleaning, you know what I mean, or suicide cleanup. But some tips I guess I have from being on the job and seeing the direct result of terrible mental health and how it just can completely destroy people. My number one thing is community. Having people in your life with you to do life with you is probably the most impactful thing for me, and what I've seen in lots of other people. You need to have people in your life that are there to just be with you, keep you accountable, whatever it is, and just to spend time with. Often, when COVID first started, people were in isolation, and that's when we did the most of our suicide cleanups, is because people were isolated and they didn't have community, or they were ostracized from their family. Things like that happen all the time, and it can drain on you. So it's not good to be alone. I think that's very, very critical. And obviously, when we do our suicide cleanups, we see lots of drugs and alcohol and that sort of thing, and seeing what people used to numb the pain. Drugs and alcohol, everyone knows it's not the best thing to get into, but especially if mental health is something you struggle with, I think staying away from those things is absolutely critical.
Yeah, do you have plans to try to help create some of those communities, or it's like some tangible steps that you can take, that we can take? Like, what would you suggest that we can all do in our own communities to actually start, executing on some of that?
Right, yeah. Right now, so I'm just now breaking into building communities and chat rooms and that sort of thing. I started a chat room for people that are like me, crime scene cleaners, just so that we have a support network for each other. Because crime scene cleaners are few and far between. There's not a whole lot of networking going on in those groups. It's a very niche field. But since I have such a large platform, I can start bringing people into these rooms and be like, oh, hey, you do what I do. We can talk about that. Because it's very rare for people to actually understand what it is that we're talking about unless they've been on scene. So that's a really cool community that I'm building right now that can hopefully grow and grow. And with their shared experiences and my shared experiences, we can start creating more and more of those type of networks that are kind of more related towards mental health and mental well-being, digital well-being, physical well-being. Yeah. That would be kind of the macro goal with that.
That's really cool. Yeah. All right, last question. So how do we make the world a better place? Kind of a general open-ended question, but what's your answer to that?
How do we make the world a better place? Oof, so many ways to answer that. I would say being truly your authentic self, no matter what, and learning how to love people efficiently. Learning how to love people well, really, is what's important. A lot of people can get on board with loving people. Not a lot of people want to go in depth on how to do that well. A lot of people, I feel, have a desire to show love to others, but the way that's being received is not working, right? So learning who your audience is, who the people you're speaking with are, and what speaks to them, I think is going to be the most critical thing to making the world a better place. So a lot of that just kind of requires listening and understanding of what other people's lives are like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think that's most of what I wanted to talk about. It's awesome to hear kind of the background behind what you do, and we see these creators that are like really big and that they provide this like entertainment or perspective to us in these little short 30-second videos. But it's kind of cool to go behind the scenes and see who they really are and what they're really all about. So yeah, it was awesome.
So yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Of course.
Cool.